Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Tech Prodigy, make your own wife at the start. Chapter 1. Evening. In a study in the most luxurious riverside manor in Manhattan. Locke suddenly woke up from his sleep, and the moment he opened his eyes, it was an unfamiliar environment. Before Locke could figure out what was going on, a memory that did not belong to him suddenly emerged and quickly integrated with him. This process was very painful, and the pain made him cry out. However, this process was also quite short. In only a few dozen seconds, that memory was completely integrated with him. Immediately, there was a hint of enlightenment in his eyes. The Rockefellers, I crossed, or the dangerous Marvel world. Locke looked at his palm with a bewildered expression, and found that the palm, which had been rough due to hard work, had now become extraordinarily fair and smooth. It looked as beautiful as a woman's hand, but he knew that he was not a woman at the moment, but still a man. According to Integrate's memory, he is now the only son of the Rockefeller family, one of the top 10 richest financial groups in the United States. Full name, Rockefeller, is a serious male. He can only be called a man now and cannot be a man, because now he is only 14 years old and still a junior high school student. After quickly figuring out the environment he was in, Locke immediately entered the state. Although he was 30 years old in his previous life, he didn't read many books, but he still knew some things through this kind of thing. So he didn't have too much ideological burden, and quickly accepted this reality, which seemed extremely beautiful to him. In his previous life, he lived a very hard life. Because his family was too poor, and his grades were always good, he was finally forced to drop out of school. He entered the society early and started a life of working and earning money by himself. In the end, due to overwork, he became seriously ill at the age of less than 30, and unfortunately died. What he didn't expect was that after his death, he crossed into the Marvel world and became the only son of the 10 richest families. In his opinion, this is simply a great reward from God. Could it be that God saw that I was too tired in my last life, so I deliberately rewarded me and let me enjoy the happiness in this world in this life? Locke's face was full of a happy smile, and his heart was extremely excited. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, and then a white-haired old man walked in. A magnetic voice immediately came out of the old man's mouth, saying, "Master, have you had a nightmare again? Do you need me to stay in the room with you?" The old man who walked into the room was none other than the old housekeeper of the Rockefeller family, Lao Mo. He has been with the family for half 100 years and is Rockefeller's most loyal servant. "I'm fine, just pour me a glass of water." Looking at the old man in front of him, Locke's mind immediately came up with bits and pieces of his predecessor and the old man's past. Although those memories belonged to the predecessor of this body, because the memories were integrated with him, he felt the same as what he had experienced himself. "Master, if you think I'm not suitable, why don't I let a few maids accompany you? They should be more suitable than me," Lao Mo hesitation said after a while. Hearing this, Locke's mind immediately appeared in Locke's mind a maid who was over half 100 years old and whose skin was wrinkled enough to be described as an old pickle. Suddenly, he couldn't help but feel a chill, and there was a little discomfort in his stomach, and he almost vomited. He really couldn't understand why their huge Rockefeller family was so incompetent when choosing their servants. The key is in his impression. His dead father is very good to these old pickles, it feels like he has a leg. I really don't understand his father's taste. If you want me to continue having nightmares, let them come up," Locke said with a blank look at Lao Mo before him. "Haha, although these maids in our family look a bit old now, they were such great beauties when they were young. Your father likes them to serve the most, and it is precisely because of this that he has kept them by his side for so many years." Quote. Lao Mo heard the meaning of Locke's words and explained with a smile. "I know that my father is affectionate and righteous, but my tastes are still different from his, so give me some younger ones tomorrow. By the way, prepare another laboratory for me, and the necessary equipment, I will write to you tomorrow." Locke thought for a while and said, "Lab, young master, what are you doing?" Old Mo's face showed curiosity. "Don't ask what you shouldn't ask. Okay, I'm going to go back to sleep, you can go out," Locke said rudely. "Yes, young master, good night." After hearing Locke's order, Lao Mo immediately left the room respectfully. Lao Mo, who exited the room, looked at the closed door, shook his head, and sighed. Since the unfortunate death of the master, the young master seems to have grown up all at once. The carefree young master from before is gone. Murderer, I will definitely find you, let you repay the debt with blood, and avenge the master. Quote. Looking at Mo, who walked out of the room, Locke couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. As a traveler, the most fearful thing is to expose one's identity. But judging from Lao Mo's expression just now, he didn't recognize that he was no longer the real Locke. It's easy to handle like this, he only needs to play the Locke of this world well now. According to Integrate's memory, he learned that his father unfortunately died on the way home after a party a few days ago. The former owner of the body was at the scene at the time and watched as his father was shot. It was precisely because of this terrifying experience that Locke, who was only 14 years old, cast a shadow on his heart. For the next few days, he would wake up from nightmares at night. This is also the main reason why Lao Mo came quickly after Locke screamed a few times. Because it is not the first time that such a scene has happened. This opening seems to be very similar to Batman in the 600th world. Locke shook his head with a wry smile. Since it's the same start, it would be inappropriate if I don't make a little of it. As a traveler, Goldfinger is definitely a must. Locke is no exception here. Not long after he crossed over, an electronic synthesis sound sounded in his mind. Obviously his Goldfinger was a system. And in fact it is true, his Goldfinger is a sky-defying system called the Big Bang of the tech world. As the name suggests, his system is closely related to technology. Congratulations to the host for binding the Big Bang of the tech world system, which is committed to making the host the strongest technological overlord in the universe. Because the host is bound to the system for the first time, a novice gift package will be rewarded. Do you need to start the newbie package right away? As the system prompt sounded, a virtual selection box immediately appeared in front of Locke's eyes. There are two options in the selection box, namely open now and open later. Looking at the selection box in front of him, Locke directly chose to open it immediately. Everyone has crossed over, and it is not turned on at this time. When are you waiting? Do you wait until you get shot in the head like that poor old man? Locke couldn't help but think silently in his heart. To know that the world he is in now is the dangerous world of Marvel. There is always the possibility of the destruction of the world here. Therefore, he must seize the time to strengthen himself, and must not let himself become the cannon fodder of this world. It's hard to travel through it once, and you have to enjoy it when you say anything. Becoming a cannon fodder must never be allowed to happen, otherwise it would be a huge loss. Ding! Congratulations to the host, the novice gift bag has been successfully opened, rewarding a chance to win the big draw in the world of science and technology. Is there a draw now? The system prompt sounded again, still a question. Locke has an illusion. I'm afraid it's not the answering system that he is bound to. Why are there so many problems? Yes, draw the lottery now. Locke shook his head speechlessly, and directly chose to draw the lottery immediately. Suddenly, a compass-like thing appeared in front of him. Covers of sci-fi movies or animations or novels appear on the compass. Nier Automata, Dragon Ball, Shape-Shifting King Kong, Resident Evil, Pacific Rim, The Three-Body Problem. Looking at the names of the familiar sci-fi works, Locke's mouth turned into an O shape. No, the so-called infinite technology world, shouldn't it refer to these science fiction works? Locke stared at the scene in front of him dumbfounded, and his own questions came out of his mouth. What Locke didn't expect was that the system he bound seemed to hear his question. Immediately answered him with a mechanical electronic synthesis tone. Yes, host, this system can realize the technology of any sci-fi works, please also let the host know. It turns out that, I understand, let's draw the lottery. I can't wait. Locke said enlightenedly, and then he clicked subconsciously. Immediately, the compass began to spin rapidly, and then began to stop slowly. When the entire compass stopped completely, the black needle stopped in front of a cover of a white-haired beauty with a blindfold-like fate. Looking at the cover in front of him, there was a hint of excitement on Locke's face. It turned out to be the Neo Mechanical Era, so I want to make a wife for myself. Locke said to himself, his face full of joy. The technology in Neil's mechanical age is not very advanced, but compared to the world of Marvel, it is not too much. In particular, the general-purpose combat robots Miss 2B and Miss A2 impressed him deeply. If he can create Miss 2B and Miss A2, then his self-protection ability will be improved to a higher level. And maybe your own nightlife. Clicking on his attribute panel, his information was displayed in front of his eyes. Host, Locke, Technology World, Neil Mechanical Age. Points, 0. Note, as long as you have witnessed the big Marvel event, or participated in the big event, you can lock the corresponding points. In the later technological world, the host needs to use the points to exchange. Use points to exchange, so it seems that the system is forcing me to participate in the Marvel event. That's fine, so that my life won't be too boring. Locke smiled. As a systematic man, if he has nothing to do, eats and waits for death every day, it is too out of his personality. He even came to the Marvel world, and what he said would stir up the storm. Otherwise, wouldn't life be too boring? Congratulations to the host Locke Neil Mechanical Era Technology Template. The technology template is integrating 1%, 2%, 10%, 100%. Congratulations to the host, the technology template of Neil Mechanical Era has been successfully integrated. With the sound of system prompts, Locke immediately noticed the abnormality. He only felt a strange energy coming into his mind out of nowhere. Then one formula, one algorithm, and one design template were all stuffed into his memory, which made him feel empowered. In just an instant, he completely learned all the technological knowledge in Neil's mechanical age. In the process, his intelligence has grown rapidly. And this is also the defying part of the system of infinite technology world. In order to make the host a qualified technological overlord, in the process of integrating the world of science and technology, you can not only learn the scientific and technological knowledge of the whole world. It can also improve the intelligence of the host accordingly, so that it has the ability to infer other things. With the end of integration, a look of satisfaction appeared on Locke's face. I have to say, this feeling of being able to become stronger and smarter without doing anything is really great. Science and technology is really good, Locke said to himself, his eyes full of excitement. But a moment later, a sense of sleepiness swept over him, causing him to yawn. Because too much intelligence has been improved in a short period of time, the side effects are inevitable. Locke also knew this. He didn't force it, he just fell down and fell asleep. Before I knew it, it was the next morning. Locke was awakened by a rush of alarm clocks. Master, it's getting late, you should get up and go to school. While Locke was still in a daze, the voice of the housekeeper Lao Mo rang in his ears. This could not help but startle him. Uncle Mo, can you knock on the door next time you enter? I knocked, but you didn't respond, young master, so you just barged in. Okay, it's an alarm clock again this early morning, and it's an artificial wake-up call. What are you doing? What are you doing, young master? Today is Monday. Monday, then what? You should go to school. School, oh, forget I'm still a student. In the last life, Locke only read one junior high school due to family reasons, and dropped out hastily. This has always been a regret of Locke, but what he didn't expect was that after he crossed over, he became a junior high school student again. He suspected that this was deliberately arranged by God to make up for the regrets of his previous life. Although it's my regret to drop out of junior high school, but I didn't say I want to make up for this regret. After all, regret is also a defective beauty. Locke shook his head with a wry smile. Uncle Mo, I'm not feeling very well, you can drop me out of school for me. Locke said calmly. Today, he has super intelligence, and the school can no longer teach him knowledge. And he's not a poor kid who needs a diploma to make a living. So just drop out of school. Okay, young master, I'm going to invite. Wait a minute, young master, did I hear it wrong? What did you just say about dropping out? Lao Mo looked at him with a stunned expression as if he had just reacted, asked Locke. Yes, you heard right, drop out, Locke said as he got up and stretched. Master, I'm afraid this is not right. Lao Mo looked at Locke with a hesitation on his face. There's nothing wrong, you just do it, Locke said unquestionably. Master, did someone bully you in the school? Tell me who it is, and I'll find someone to take care of him. Lao Mo said with an angry face, looking like a fierce beast protecting a calf. Seeing this, Locke froze for a moment, then laughed. Who dares to bully me? It's just that I don't want to study anymore. Master, you are only 14 years old. Now is the time for you to learn knowledge. What are you doing if you don't study? Why don't you study? That's a good question for you. Picking up girls and dancing, messing around, fighting, you can try all of these. Locke touched his chin with a distressed look. Quote. Master, this is not good for you. Besides, you are only 14 years old now, and you are still a minor. Although I am underage, my body is already very mature. Besides, going to school and learning knowledge are two different things. Just because I don't go to school doesn't mean I don't learn knowledge. By the way, did you get the lab you prepared for me last night? Locke asked. I have already sent someone to prepare, but what do you want a laboratory for suddenly, young master? You'll know what I do in the future. According to this manual, get me all the materials. In the future, my study venue will be in the laboratory. Locke said and threw a prepared manual into Lao Mo's hands. The materials recorded here are all the materials needed for the technological invention of the world of Neil's mechanical age. Seeing that Locke was tinkering with his laboratory, Lao Mo could only sigh and stop talking. At this moment, he just thinks that his young master is too sad and unintentional to study because the master passed away. As long as you wait for a while to cultivate, it will slowly recover. It's not too late to talk to him about going back to school then. So he didn't say anything and went out with the manual provided by Locke. A few days later, a science and technology laboratory with an area of about 1,000 square meters appeared in the underground of Rockefeller Manor. The laboratory is full of various scientific research materials that Lao Mo has brought from all over the world. Each of these materials is valuable, and the entire laboratory material cost tens of millions of dollars. Just because Locke suddenly wanted to set up a scientific laboratory, the entire Rockefeller family mobilized all over the world to find materials. In the end, they spent tens of millions of dollars to buy all these materials back. I have to say that the happiness of rich people is something most people would not dare to think about. Tens of millions, this is the money that ordinary people can't earn in a lifetime. But for the Rockefeller family, it was just pocket money. This shows how rich Locke is today. Like Bruce Wayne in the 600th world, he has the banknote ability. But there are differences between them. That is, Bruce Wayne likes to use the money ability to buy high-tech equipment. He is different. He buys materials with the money ability, and then builds the equipment himself. Two kinds of happiness are completely different. 1 month later. In front of Locke, a tall, bumpy white-haired beauty with a blindfold appeared. This white-haired beauty is a general-purpose battle line robot of the Eula 2B type. Locke has been sleeping and eating for more than a month, and all his food and lodging are in his research room, and no one can enter. In order to create the 2B lady in front of you. As expected of the high-tech combined with biochemical technology, this touch is no different from a real person. Locke's hand kneaded on Miss 2B's body, and immediately felt a dry mouth. Looking at the stunning beauty in front of him, Locke has a strange feeling, this is obviously a robot created by himself. But why can't I hold it all together after putting all the pieces together? It must be because I am still in adolescence, it must be. With a wry smile, Locke raised his hand and pressed it on the controller in his hand. Night Blade number 2 Type B, being activated. Start self-test. All body parts are normal, body temperature is normal, visual system is normal. The memory system is being imported. The emotional system is self-generating. The memory import is completed, the emotional system is generated, and the activation is successful. Quote. A series of very mechanical voices came from Miss 2B's mouth. In order to achieve the most perfect state, Locke made a personalized upgrade to Miss 2B. Miss 2B in front of her is not an emotionless killing machine. First of all, he transformed Miss 2B's original mechanical body into a biochemical body. All body structures are created through biochemical technology. In addition to the absence of blood, organs can be replaced at will. Her touch and body temperature are almost indistinguishable from normal humans. Even if Miss 2B is thrown into the crowd, no one will ever see that he is actually a robot. What's even more insane is the emotional system that Locke specially created for Miss 2B. You must know that in the original world, Miss 2B is emotionless, just a highly intelligent robot. But in order to increase the difficulty of manufacturing, Locke deliberately added a task to develop an emotional system. And he originally prefers Miss 2B who has feelings. After all, there are some things, there is a big difference between those who have feelings and those who don't. As Miss 2B was successfully activated, Miss 2B, who was originally like a sculpture, moved. Stretching her waist like a water snake, Miss 2B let out a lazy yawn. Seeing this, Locke threw the prepared clothes in front of Miss 2B. Put it on. Locke resisted the urge to spray nosebleed, turned around and said. It was already exciting enough when I didn't move, and now I'm moving, it feels even more exciting. Mad, is it really because he is still a teenager? What happened to your body? I saw. Suddenly, a pleasant voice came from Miss 2B's mouth. Quote question mark question mark question mark quote. What did you see? Locke turned to look at Miss 2B and asked. Suddenly, something was wrong with him now, and he quickly turned his body around. You put on your clothes first, after all, there are differences between men and women, and I'm still underage. Locke said helplessly. Seeing Locke's performance like this, Miss 2B smiled. He quickly put on his clothes, walked directly to Locke's back with catwalk, and then pressed against Locke's ear. The list of young masters. Underage, but already very mature. Do you need me to help you? Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Locke was shocked. He didn't expect that he would enter into the directory of Miss 2B's memory system for fun, and she would actually learn and use it. What help? Miss 2B didn't answer, but gently twisted Locke's body to face her face, and then gently placed her warm red lips on Locke's mouth. The first rule of robotics. A robot must never harm the creator, nor disobey any order of the creator. The second rule of robotics. Observe the words, discover the needs of the creator, and take the initiative to meet the needs of the creator. The precondition is that the first rule must be followed. Master, am I right? Miss 2B looked at Locke with a soft smile and said. That's right. Locke nodded. Well, now the young master can give orders. Well, I'm not good at this topic, you can make up for me. Tutor, I know. A long time. Under the guidance of Miss Nightblade No. 2 Type B, hereafter referred to as Nightblade, Locke finally overcomes the problem that he does not know. Although Locke is not the first time to hand in homework, it should be the first time in this world. It was a wonderful experience that made him feel like he was back in the green years of his previous life. The key point is that his current body is only 14 years old, and the key object to help him with his homework is the general-purpose combat robot he built himself. Technology has really changed life, and it's okay to have a wife for yourself. In the mist-shrouded bathroom, through the frosted glass, you could vaguely see the exploding figure of the Nightblade. There was a wretched smile on Locke's face. With this tutor, you will no longer have to worry about not being able to write your homework or ordering anywhere. Turning on the TV, Locke crossed Erlang's legs and hummed a little song, waiting for a brace. At this moment, a hot news was broadcast on the TV. Yes, Iron Man is me. A man with a mustache looked at the camera and said very forcefully. Anyone who has seen Marvel knows that this man is not the famous New York playboy Tony Stark, but who else? What is Iron Man? Mr. Yeblade walked over to Locke while wiping his hair while wearing a pure white bath towel. Like a well-behaved cat, he sat in Locke's arms. A guy who likes to pretend, but a technological genius. Locke rudely put his hand into the bath towel and said after thinking for a while. For Locke's rude behavior, a warm smile appeared on Yeblade's face. According to the first rule of robotics, she must not disobey Locke's orders. As for this kind of small gesture between couples, it goes without saying that it is simply too much to ask for. Technical genius. His suit of armor is nothing more than that. You are much worse than you, master. As a robot, Nightblade quickly connected to the internet and analyzed Tony Stark's equipment. The conclusion is very simple, just so. This is not much more advanced than the technology of the neo-mechanical era in her memory, and it is even a lot worse. After all, in that world, it is possible to create a general-purpose combat robot like her. And the creator in front of her is even more amazing, able to implant her emotional system, so that she has the same thinking mode and physiological experience as human beings. It's not something that Iron Man can compare to. I like to hear compliments, but Tony Stark still has 2 brushes, so don't underestimate him. Locke said while squeezing Nightblade's soft chin. Master, is it time to do your homework again? Yi Ren said with a charming smile. No, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable this time, you can take a look at me. Locke said pretending to be weak. Nurse, I know. Yi Ren smiled, got up and left the room to change clothes. But at this moment, there was a knock on Locke's door, and without looking, Locke knew who it was. Master, are you asleep? Lao Mo's caring voice sounded outside the door. Not yet, what's the matter? Locke said while waving at Yeren, who was changing into the nurse's costume and walking out, motioning her to enter the bedroom. Seeing this, Yeren nodded obediently, and closed the door with a smile. At this time, Lao Mo pushed in the door, and glanced around Locke's room with a puzzled look, feeling like he was caught. Butler Mo, what are you doing? Locke looked at Lao Mo speechlessly and asked. Master, who were you talking to in the room just now? Is there anyone else in the room? Lao Mo asked with concern, with a worried look in his eyes. He thought at first that Locke dropped out of school at home, just because he would not be able to accept the sad news of his father's unfortunate death for a while. So I want to change the environment to adjust my mood, and then I will arrange a private school for the young master in a few days, and then I can continue to send him to school. After all, this age is the time to study, and it is impossible not to read. But I didn't expect that more than a month had passed, and not only did this young master not mention going to school. He didn't even stay in the laboratory he established day and night, not knowing what he was tinkering with, forgetting to eat and sleep. And it was so late at the moment that he was still talking to himself in the room, which really made him worry. In the entire Rockefeller family, there is only one seed like Locke, and he will be in charge of the entire Chable family in the future. So, how can you do without reading? In this huge manner, besides Butler Mo, you and those old pickle maids, where are there other living people? Locke said solemnly. The old Mo in front of him is now playing the role of his father, and he wants to train him well. He is naturally very grateful for this, but this is obviously not the time to introduce Miss 2B. After all, it's really inconvenient for Miss 2B, who is wearing a nurse's uniform. Why is there a strange smell in the room? Lao Mo said, sniffing his nose. Then he saw a pile of toilet paper on the ground. Suddenly, he seemed to understand something. Young master, you are still young, there are some things you can't grasp, or... Lao Mo hesitated. Locke was speechless, obviously Lao Mo had misunderstood him. It's not what you think, if you're all right, go back and rest. It's not too early, I can live with it when I'm young, don't toss yourself. Quote. Seeing that Locke was in a hurry to let him leave, Lao Mo thought it was a secret being discovered, and he was afraid of embarrassment. He got up quickly and said, the old servant didn't mean to talk about you because he was looking for you so late. In fact, there is something to tell you that the murderer of your father has been found and is now on trial at the police station. I believe there will be a result soon. Young master, the dead can't be resurrected, you can't continue to be decadent, you are still young, you should look forward. This is the information of the criminal. If you want to vent your anger, I will take you directly to the police station tomorrow. I have already dealt with the people over there. Roar. As long as you don't die, you can do it. Lao Mo gently put down a card on the table, sighed and left. In his opinion, Locke has a heart disease, and a heart disease is such a thing as a person who needs to tie the bell. So he didn't hesitate to buy into the police station, and he also gave Locke a chance to vent his anger. You can see his savior's heartfelt mood. Butler Mo, thank you. Looking at Lao Mo's back, Locke thanked him from the bottom of his heart. What I should do, young master, have a good rest, I will retire first. After leaving Locke's room, Lao Mo, who was standing at the door, was full of emotion. In a month's time, the 14-year-old young master seems to have changed and matured too much. And the more mature Locke is, the more worried he is. Instead of letting the young master do it himself, it is better to find a trustworthy woman for the young master. This may help him untie the knot. Lao Mo muttered to himself. At this moment, if Locke knew that his old butler was going to find a woman for him when he was still a minor in order to untie the so-called knot in his heart, he would not know how he would feel. I guess you will be impressed. This old butler deserves a deep friendship. In the room, Locke picked up the card on the table with a bloodthirsty sneer on his face. Looks like there's a new event tonight. Pushing open the bedroom door, the first person to see is the Nightblade wearing a nurse's uniform. Lying on the soft big bed like a cat, he flipped through a middle school biology textbook. The slightly pouted hills blocked Locke's sight, making him unable to move away. Nightblade is very careful, and wears a stethoscope around her neck, which adds the finishing touch to her cosplay. The cold stethoscope landed on the towering tower, and it was estimated that it had been warmed by her body temperature. The dim yellow light reflected Yaren's figure loomingly, with a hazy beauty that was still half covered by a pippa. In this situation, the hormones that are already surging in adolescence can't help but secrete even more vigorously. Master, the book says that spring is here, and it's time for animals to mate. Is it spring now? Gently closing the book in his hand, Yi-Ren looked at Locke with a half-smile and asked. Hearing this, Locke shook his head with a smile and said, "It should be. Otherwise, I won't have a runny nose and catch a cold. This is obviously the rhythm of the spring flu." "Well, I think so too, the nurse sister will give you a look." "That's troublesome." Locke walked towards the Nightblade with a smile. In the middle of the night, with the bright moon in the sky, a silver-haired woman in a black battle suit with two long swords suspended on her back looked extraordinarily coquettish under the moonlight. This woman is none other than Miss 2B, who watched the flu for Locke not long ago. As a robot, Nightblade has the same emotions, the same thinking patterns, and the same physical experience as humans. But she is still not a real human. Humans need sleep, but she does not. In fact, at this time, she could continue to rest in Locke's arms like a cat. Although you don't need to sleep, but occasionally stand by, it is equivalent to rest. But Locke gave her a new mission, one that required a fight. Find that guy, find out who's behind it, and kill him. The icy voice came from the anti-gravity small drone beside Nightblade. This is Locke's voice. After learning about the murderer of his Chable father from Lao Mo, Locke could not be indifferent. Although he came through, but the good life in this life was left to him by the old man. That alone gave him reason to avenge him. Like what Lao Mo said, just vent your anger and save his life. How could this kind of thing be found in him? And there is only one way to deal with the enemy, and that is to kill. It's just that with his current weak body, it is obviously impossible to do so. In this way, he can only leave this opportunity to his wife, the Nightblade. However, although he has not been able to personally participate in such violent actions for the time being, but remotely controlling an anti-gravity drone to follow the Nightblade, he could easily do it. Understood. Yi-Ren nodded and jumped directly from the 10-story high-rise building. Opposite is the police station that Lao Mo mentioned. Leaping from a height of tens of meters, Yi-Blade seemed to have a shock absorber installed under his feet, which easily removed most of the impact force, and landed safely and lightly without alarming anyone. With the help of Locke's high-tech, all the monitoring equipment in the police station was completely paralyzed and failed at this moment. Nightblade, who didn't care at all, came to the door of the cell directly based on the information provided by Locke. Under the terrifying power of the Nightblade, the heavy iron prison door was easily pulled open. The murderer, who was still in his sleep, was directly strangled by Yi-Ren's neck and lifted up. The man who was still awake immediately showed a look of horror in his eyes. He wanted to roar loudly, but he couldn't make a sound. "From now on, I will ask you to answer," Yi-Ren said with an expressionless face. Hearing Yi-Ren's words, the man nodded desperately, as if he was worried that he was slow to nod, and this strange woman with a blindfold in front of him would kill him directly. "Who instructed you about the shooting of the old man of the Locke family? Don't tell me you have no accomplices for such a stupid answer." The cold voice came from the drone beside Yi-Blade, and it was Locke who was questioning. "Kim, Boss Jin, it's Boss Jin Kim and asked me to do it. Please don't kill me, I'm just a tool, kill me." Card wipe. "Kill you. This is the first time I've heard of such a request. If I don't satisfy you, wouldn't I be so sorry for you?" Without waiting for the man to finish speaking, Locke directly ordered Nightblade to do it. His purpose for letting Yaren come out today is very simple, to find clues to the people behind the scenes, then kill him, and then continue to kill. The first two have been completed, and now there is the last one left to continue killing. Who to kill? Naturally, it was to kill the boss of Jin, the so-called emperor of the underworld, Jin Merge. I should have thought that this had something to do with Jinping, but it's not too late now. Nightblade, go to Jinbian building and slaughter them all. I hate the smell of blood, so make it as clean as possible. Quote. Well, I'm sure I won't touch a drop of blood. Yi Ren smiled and nodded, jumping out of the police station, like a ghost, disappearing into the night. Not long after Yi Ren left, all surveillance at the police station returned to normal. An old fritter with a baton yawned and patrolled as usual. When he came to the entrance of the cell, he was half awake immediately after being sleepy. The iron door that was violently torn apart was so dazzling and shocking. Roar is called the duty room. Roar is called the duty room. There is an abnormal situation here, and immediate reinforcements are needed. While shouting at the nervous Roar on the walkie-talkie, the old fritter policeman quickly took out his pistol from the lower back and walked slowly towards the door of the cell that was torn apart. A man who thought he was pretty cool turned around and went into the hole, aiming his gun at the cell, but he was stunned. It didn't take long for the urgent siren to sound at the police station, indicating that today's unrest has officially begun. On the other side, Jinbing building. The ancient and precious Swiss clocks hung on the office walls, ticking, and the hour hand pointed to 2 o'clock. In the silent room, the air seemed to freeze. At the time when he should have rested, an unusually tall and strong man stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows like a sculpture. The ash fell from the cigar head between his fingers, and he exhaled a thick puff of white smoke. The man turned around and looked at the trash man who was kneeling at the door, with a grin on his face. There are 2 paths in front of you now. The first one is to sneak into the police station and kill him to avoid future troubles, and then you commit suicide. The second rule, I'll kill you now, and your whole family, you can start choosing. Quote. I choose the first one, choose the first one, don't touch my family. The man kneeling on the ground cried bitterly. Why did you go so early? The man pressed the cigar into the ashtray fiercely, and the hot cigarette butt seemed to be pressed into the man's heart, making him terrified. He was terrified from the bottom of his heart for this unusually strong man in front of him. Because this man is none other than Jin Bing, who enjoys the reputation of the underworld emperor. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Enter. His eyes moved to the door, and a subordinate walked in a hurry. Boss, Jace is dead. Dead. Jin Bing frowned slightly, showing a hint of curiosity. The Jess mentioned by his subordinates as the murderer he sent to shoot the old man of the Rockefeller family. According to his original arrangement, Jace shot the old man, and then the guy in front of him shot Jace. Then, the guy in front of him committed suicide, leaving his beautiful wife for his own enjoyment. In this way, a perfect plan has reached a closed loop, and there is no proof. And he and the forces behind him are very happy, taking advantage of the fisherman. However, accidents always occur inadvertently, and due to some unknown reasons, Jace ran away. To make matters worse, he was caught by the police ahead of time. While he had confidence in Jace's tight-lippedness, he believed in Deadman more. After all, Deadman's mouth is the best-kept secret. So, there is the present scene. How did you die? Who did it? Jin took another cigar and inadvertently took out the pistol from the drawer. While lighting a precious Cuban cigar, he asked blankly. The news from over there is that someone broke his neck directly. As for the murderer, to be investigated. To be investigated. A group of rice buckets, thinking about it with their heads, knew that this matter had nothing to do with the Rockefeller family. Keeping that little always makes people feel uneasy. Find someone to do it for him sooner. Quote. Boss, the wind is a little tight now. If it's tight and tight gameplay, I'd still be afraid of it before. But now, there is such a big backer behind it. Oh, play to the death. Quote. After that, Jin Bian picked up the cigar, picked up the pistol on the table, and shot at the kneeling man without hesitation. A gunshot rang out, and the man fell to the ground with his eyes wide open, unable to rest his eyes. Pull it out to feed the dog, pick up his wife, and repay the husband's debt to his wife. Yes, boss. The subordinate nodded, turned around and went to work, but he hadn't waited for him to go far. A rapid alarm sounded. Woo. Hearing the sudden alarm sound, everyone's faces showed surprise. Jin Bian frowned, exhaled a smoke ring, raised his hand and pressed it on the desk. Surveillance footage appeared on the screen on the wall of the room. I saw a woman appearing on the surveillance screen. The woman has silver hair, wears a black tight leather jacket, and has a blindfold on her face, so she can't see her true face. However, from the aura emanating from her body and her bumpy figure, it could be faintly seen that this woman was an extremely rare stunner. But at this moment, everyone's eyes were attracted to her not just because of her beautiful figure. It is also because of her strong fighting power. You must know that their Jinbing building can be said to be heavily guarded, and their armed forces are no less than a special army. On weekdays, let alone a person, even if a fly wants to come in, it is impossible. But now this woman entered their mansion as if she were no one. All those who tried to stop him from coming in didn't even touch her, and were instantly killed by a laser shot by a strange machine suspended beside her. So much so that a group of security personnel had to rely on armed fire to attack the woman. But that woman was like a cheetah, and her movement speed and reaction speed were comparable to that of a monster. The overwhelming bullets were all chopped off by the long sword in her hand. In the end, she was approached by her ghostly body, and her head was separated. A woman is like a witch who came out of the abyss of hell, walking all the way, but no one survives wherever she goes. With such a ruthless method, even Jin couldn't help taking a deep breath, and his scalp became numb. The silver-haired witch who walked in was none other than Yi Blade. Where is this monster crawling out of? Jin Bing's men looked at the screen, his tongue was a little dry, and his legs were a little weak. Only Jin Bing's face was gloomy, and he didn't know what he was thinking. He snuffed out the cigar in his hand again and exhaled the last puff of thick white smoke. Go upstairs. Rao is an existence like him, and at this moment he can't help but need to retreat from the edge. This woman is not easy to mess with. Rockefeller Family Estate. Locke wears a VR goggle and holds a gamepad in his hand. There was an unruly smile unique to a bad boy on his face. Mortal Kombat is okay, Locke muttered to himself, very excited. Since the Nightblade was adjusted to remote manual control, he has completely taken over the body of Miss 2B. Yes, the Nightblade, whose combat performance is now breaking the table, is controlled by Locke using the remote control. I have to say, this general-purpose combat robot wife is simply stunned. If you can go to the hall and go down to the kitchen, you can warm the bed to accompany you, roll up your sleeves to fight monsters, and the key can be divided into automatic and manual. Cool. Sure enough, technology changes life. Simply rubbing his fingers on the remote control, the Nightblade on the other side of the Jinnan building, the sword and the long sword are used alternately, and the joint moves continue to output one by one. Single kill, double kill, triple kill. 58 kills. All the way to kill, all the way to send. It didn't take long for the entire Jinbing building to be filled with corpses and blood, and all those who tried to attack the Nightblade survived. Clear the SSS rating, and the Nightblade has not lost a drop of blood. For the scene in front of him, Yi Blade himself kept a soft smile on his face. As a general-purpose combat robot, she obviously has no compassion for life. At least until the emotional system has not been fully developed, it should not appear. So the bloody scene has no effect on her, all she cares about is whether her creator is happy, and then she is happy. Now this feeling that she can't move, but can easily solve the enemy, makes her very happy. Definitely, the key to being cool is that you don't have to move it. In the manner, the sound of the drone warning sounded in Locke's ears. As early as when the manual mode was turned on, he dispatched the anti-gravity drone suspended beside the Nightblade and carried out a separate action. From what he knew about Jinbing, this guy was not the kind of person who would just sit back and wait. Escaping the scene and fighting for a counter-kill in the later period should be the most likely thing for him to do. And Locke was not in the mood to play with him for so long, and he even killed him. Do you think the king is back? Threats that can be solved now, but left to the future, are obviously not something that our tech prodigies will do. Eat the meal on the same day, sleep on the girl on the same day, and repay the revenge on the same day. This is the life dogma that Locke has always enveloped in his previous life. As the name suggests, it's time to have fun. Body takeover has been disconnected. Jinping is on the top of the building, planning to escape. I will stop him first, and you will come by yourself. Locke's voice sounded in Yaren's mind. Is this the end? It's really a disappointment. I'm not happy enough, Yi Ren said with a charming smile. Obviously, She likes the feeling of not having to move, and then being under the full control of the young master. After solving this trouble, there will be time in the future. I can keep you still for a day. That's okay, it's not moving for a day. This, I'll just say it. Can you not believe it all? After all, I'm human and my physical strength is limited. Master, didn't you say that there is a strengthening potion in this world, or I'll get it for you? Quote. Several meanings. Dislike the battery life is not enough, want me to take medicine. You said it yourself. The strengthening potion can be considered, but can I get 10 copies? 10 copies. Are you going to drill wood to make fire? Take your sister's fire. It's not just to take my sister's fire. Quote. Locke was speechless, and the robot that would talk back was a little bit unbearable. Go back and I will tear down your emotional system. Cut. You can't bear it. One person and one robot are flirting and acting separately. Locke took over the control of the anti-gravity drone just by switching the screen. Under the surveillance of the drone, a tall man in a white suit came to the roof of the Jinning building with a cane. A helicopter had already launched, waiting for Kim to get on. Jin Bing's face was gloomy. As the emperor of the underworld, it was the first time that he was so embarrassed that he was driven away like a lost dog. He knocked the cane hard on the ground to vent his dissatisfaction. With a trace of nostalgia in his eyes, he looked at the Jinbing building that belonged to him, his fists clenched, and his heart was filled with anger. There is quite a situation where the hero of the novel is being suppressed and ready to make a 3-year oath. Now, it is only necessary for him to say something like 30 years in Hedong and 30 years in Hexi, don't bully young people and poor people. But Locke didn't give him this chance, and a laser shot from the drone. Immediately, a slice was made of the helicopter, along with the driver inside. The picture is a little bloody, but who cares? At this moment, a silver-haired figure landed on the top balcony of the building from the sky. Under the moonlight, his tall and slender figure pulled out a long shadow to cover Jin and his group. The black skirt dances with the wind, hazy and beautiful. Looking at Locke was stunned. My wife is so sassy and beautiful. Not only Locke was shocked, everyone present was shocked. But after the shock, the group raised the guns in their hands and pointed at the night blade. But they were afraid that the drones not far away would attack them, and they quickly turned their guns to the drones. Suddenly, a slightly comical scene appeared. A group of people pointed to the drone and pointed to the night blade, completely confused. This shouldn't be the case on a gold tie board, and it's clear that they're really panicking. Looking at such a scene, Locke in the manner sneered, killing intent in his eyes. The matter of the old man of the Rockefeller family is definitely not as simple as it seems on the surface. Even if Jin Bing, the so-called underworld emperor, is found, it should never be the end. Because he knows very well what kind of status a top chaebol family has in the beautiful country. Such a supreme existence, let alone a little underworld fool, even if people in Congress want to move them, they have to weigh how much they have. But what should have been impossible happened unexpectedly. When things go wrong, there must be demons, and behind this absolutely unimaginable predators are at work. And what he wants is to catch this predator, then tear him up, chop him, and serve him on his wine table. At that time, guests from all over the world will be invited to congratulate, and the chickens will be killed for the monkeys to see. If the gun in your hand is useful, you won't be forced into this. The cold voice of the night blade rang in the ears of everyone. She did not act immediately, but sat in a hurry on the high balcony, bathed in the bright moonlight, enjoying the elegance. Wrapped in tight leather pants, her long, thin, straight legs swayed lightly without any order. In fact, she didn't like to wrap her body parts so tightly. However, his creator, master and husband, Locke, doesn't like his tutor and nurse being watched by other men. As that song sings, I don't want to see you get drunk in the middle of the night anymore. Don't want other men to see your charm. You should know this will break my heart. Quote. She didn't want to break her creator's heart, so she wrapped herself up obediently. Who are you? Jinbian said with a cane in hand, looking at Nightblade with a frown. No nutritious question, no need to answer. Jin Bing's question was not answered. Yi Blade turned over, and during the process of turning over, the long sword behind her spun out. Like a crescent moon, it flew in front of Jin and his men at an unimaginable speed. When the night blade fell to the ground, the long blade automatically flew back to the back, and all the men around Jin Bing fell to the ground. Looking closely, there was a red bloodshot on their necks. Seeing that his subordinates were killed by this woman in an instant, Jin Bing couldn't help feeling chills on his back. The move the woman used just now was too aggressive and domineering, and the speed was so fast that he was not in a hurry to react. If the woman attacked him just now, he might not be able to stop it. This woman is terrible, terrible. Actually, you already have the answer in your heart, so why bother talking nonsense with me here? Yi Ren sneered, and strode in at a high speed. Appeared in front of Jin Bing in an instant, without using weapons, just pure fist strength. This is Locke's request, because he really wants to see how strong Miss 2B can be in this world. A punch was thrown, but before it hit Jinping, the strong wind arrived first, causing Jinping to close his eyes slightly. Jin Bing was horrified, his hands quickly blocked in front of him, and collided with Yaren's fist. But what he didn't expect was that a strange force burst out from the fist of the woman in front of him, and he couldn't bear it at all. The sturdy body began to retreat backwards in embarrassment. Boom! He slammed heavily against the wall. Fissures like spider webs began to spread. At the same time, two sharp pains appeared in his arms and back. The severe pain in the arm was caused by Yi Blade's fist, and the severe pain in the back was naturally hit. In just one encounter, he deeply felt the horror of the woman in front of him. Terrifying reaction speed, terrifying explosive power, terrifying physical strength. Everything is terrifying. Is this woman human? Why is her fist so hard? He claims that more than 90% of his body is muscle, and his strength is amazing, and he can punch through a wall with his bare hands. Moreover, he is also a top martial artist in the world, with the highest level of human combat power. But in front of the woman in front of him, he was like a doll. Her fists were like steel. If it weren't for the woman in front of her, that was no different from a human being. He had to suspect that her body was made of iron. You can barely take my punch, you are very good, but that's it. Yi Blade's face was expressionless, and his body moved again, faster than before. When he was approaching Jin and he couldn't react at all, when he did, a long sword had already pierced through his body. Nail him to the wall like a string. Now, it's my turn to ask you a question. The night blade flicked the long sword gracefully. The long sword vibrated violently, and Vibe tugged at Jin Bing's wound, causing him to let out a painful wailing. Looking at the abused and powerless Jin Ning, Locke looked satisfied. Obviously, Jin Bing, a well-known macho in the Marvel world, still can't resist the terrifying charm of Miss 2B. According to preliminary calculations, Miss 2B's strength has at least reached the level of surface-level superhero, and she is still relatively upstream. Maybe next time he can use the Hulk as an experimental control group. Speaking of the Hulk, Locke's heart showed a hint of anticipation. The Iron Man has come out, will the Hulk still be far away? Hey, my pockets are empty, I have to find a chance to do something and earn some points. Locke said. Nightblade clasped his hands in front of his chest and stared blankly at Jin Ning in front of him. At this moment, her body was taken over by Locke again, and Yi Yan's own consciousness was put aside to rest as she wished. The Underworld Emperor is just a false name, you shouldn't really believe it, right? Confess the guy behind you. This way I can make your death a little easier. Locke, who borrowed the body of the Nightblade, said calmly. Jin clenched his teeth and struggled desperately, trying to break free from the long sword that nailed him. But the rapid loss of blood made his lips pale, and the power he used to be proud of disappeared completely. Right now, he is in vain. Seeing that he was powerless to resist, Jin Bing looked fierce and stared at the Nightblade in front of him. Kill me, seeking death, very bloody, but stupid. You are dead, the people behind you are still happy, and there is no impact. Are you willing? Locke sneered, killing people. Actually, I don't have to interrogate you at all. Do you know what this mechanical bug in my hand is? This thing can easily read other people's memories, but the process is a bit bloody. He'll get into your brain and slowly devour your brain stem. And you're not going to die right away, you're going to experience the pain of this brain being eaten away bit by bit. If the pain level of a woman giving birth is 10, then the pain level is 100. In this world, people who can endure such pain have not yet been born. Do you want to try? Quote. Nightblade took out a mechanical bug the size of his little finger and put it on Jin Bing's bald head. This is a mechanical bug specially created by Locke to read the memory using the mechanical life technology in the Neil technology world. It's just that it takes a long time for the mechanical bug to read the memory of the other party, and there is still a certain failure rate. So unless it is a last resort, Locke doesn't want to use it, but it's a good choice to use this thing to scare people. Hearing Yi Ren's emotionless voice, a guy like Rao Shi Jinbing couldn't help but swallow his saliva, panicking in his heart. He is not afraid of death, but he is afraid of being tortured to death. These are two completely different outcomes. And Locke was right about one thing, that he was really unwilling. He is a dignified underworld emperor, and he has always been the only one who takes people as chess pieces. No one has ever dared to make him a pawn. If this kind of thing happened, he wouldn't make it easier for them. A grasshopper on a boat, the big deal is that the fish will die and the net will be broken, and you will die. Lao Su's life is gone, can you still be happy? In an instant, Jin Ning completely figured it out. I can tell you, but promise me, give me a treat. Make a deal. Pierce, Kim said weakly, his blood was almost dry. Even if Locke didn't kill him, he would be dead soon. Secretary of the World Security Council, Pierce, Locke mused. Jin nodded, as a default. Very well, it would be even better if you could tell me their purpose. I don't know the specifics, but Pierce didn't mean to mention that once. Your father was a participant in a World War II program and they were looking for something. PFF'd. As soon as he finished speaking, a mouthful of blood poured out of Jin Bing's mouth, and he would not live long. Looking for something. Interesting, you can die. Locke nodded, and the drone suspended not far away fired a laser. In an instant, Jin and the corpse were separated. Looking at the dead Jin Ning, Yi withdrew the long sword and wiped the blood on the long sword without hesitation. Master, I'll do what I say, no blood. Miss 2B said with a smile. Well, you did a good job, come back with a prize. I like rewards. What's the reward today? Governess, or Miss Nurse? No, it's better for me today. What are you here for? Today I'm a repairman repairing sewers. Professional sewer access. View. Quote. View your sister. Yi Ren rolled his eyes and said. Yo, I learned to answer quickly, isn't it your sister Bew? I think it's better to destroy my emotional system. Cut, you can't bear it. Quote. That sounds familiar. In the Rockefeller manner, Locke laughed, finally curing the robot wife once. This feeling, what a cool word. Woo. At this moment, a series of rapid sirens sounded. Obviously, what happened here in Jinbing building was known. The bright moonlight pulled Yaren's shadow even more slender, and the silver-white hair fluttered in the wind. Standing on the edge of the roof of the building, the corner of Yi Blade's mouth was slightly upturned, revealing a beautiful smile. Look at the constantly flashing red and blue light. There was a wanton smile on Locke's face in the room. Let the world become more and more chaotic. This is interesting, isn't it? Chapter 11. In the Rockefeller estate, Nightblade has quietly returned. She put on a housewife's clothes and was cleaning the room, just like a little daughter-in-law. At this moment, Locke, who was wearing a repairman's clothes, walked in unhurriedly. Dong dong. Pretend there is a knock on the door. Mrs. 2B, is your sewer blocked? I'm here to open the sewer. Yi Yan turned his head, showing a beautiful smile, Master, you call it roar, how can I hear that you are cursing? And can the knock on the door not come out of your mouth? You can pretend to knock on the door. Nightblade said helplessly. Quote. We're just cosplaying, can we stop being so critical? Seriously, you're not doing too well. Other wives are doing hygiene while lying on their stomachs. It's obviously wrong for you to do it while you are standing. Quote. I'm not an islander, I'm definitely standing up for hygiene. You can be now. Okay, then do it all over again. Forget it, I am a 14-year-old boy, still too immature, not suitable for the role of cuz, I think I should be a student again. Teacher Yaren. I also think, classmate Locke, let's start making up lessons now. The next morning, Locke got up early and went for a morning run in the manor. In the past life, he became ill from overwork, and finally died of illness, and he died young. The main reason is that they do not cherish their own body too much. Now that he has lived a new life, he can't repeat the same mistakes. The key is that he has no worries about food and clothing in this life, and he doesn't need to worry about money at all. Now he just needs to take good care of himself. After all, there is still a robot wife at home, and his A2 sister is also under construction. Therefore, you still need to exercise more for your body, especially your waist strength, which is particularly important. But just as he thought of it, an old figure slowly ran past him and overtook him. That figure is none other than his old housekeeper, Mo, who is close to 80 years old. Master, you can't do it. Quote. Old man, you are courting death. Locke caught up with Lao Mo with difficulty, and his legs were a little weak. The old butler who is nearly 80 years old in front of him is unusual, and his running speed is not inferior to that of a teenager, which is very abnormal. He didn't care too much about his predecessor, but Locke, who was a traveler, found a clue. In his memory, this old housekeeper has always been very tough, and has always dutifully guarded the manor. For nearly 100 years, there has never been any problem. This may seem like a no-brainer, but when you think about it, it's quite unreasonable. Not to mention how many terrible opponents the Rockefeller family offended in the process of business. It is absolutely impossible for a manor without security forces to be as peaceful as the security issue in the beautiful country. Now that I think about it, all of this is really unreasonable. According to his intuition, this is most likely related to the old housekeeper in front of him. This guy, who is almost 80 years old, still walks with wind, and his movement speed is not weaker than his own youth. This is clearly abnormal. He suddenly thought of Kim and said before his death that his father seemed to be involved in a World War II-era project. As far as he knew, Lao Mo should have been by his father's side at that time. Perhaps the thing that Jin Bing has been looking for, Lao Mo knows. Thinking of this, he felt that it was necessary for him to talk to Lao Mo. But if that's the case, then what happened last night is likely to be discovered. This is a bit tricky. Young master, you are so worried, what's the matter? Lao Mo looked at Locke curiously and asked. Oh, nothing, I just couldn't do a question yesterday, and I'm still thinking about it. The question is not good, that's a problem. You don't have a teacher by your side now, you can only rely on yourself, this is not acceptable. By the way, since you don't want to go to school, master, otherwise I will invite all the teachers to my house. With this one-on-one tutoring, you can always ask a teacher for help. Lao Mo thought about it and said, he still didn't give up sending Locke to study. Hearing this, Locke was naturally not interested, he just said it casually. No teacher can help him with his homework now, but he can help them in turn. Forget it, I think self-study is pretty good. By the way, Lao Mo, there's something I've always wanted to ask you. Master, please tell me, I will give you a detailed answer. That is, our old man, apart from leaving me this large family business, have you left anything else? Locke thought for a while and asked. Other things, I don't have an impression of it, but everything the old man has is now yours. Maybe you can go to the old man's study, there should be some of his personal belongings there. Quote. A study room. Master, are you looking for something? Lao Mo asked curiously. Hee, not really, I just thought of the great cause of this family, after a little worry, after all, I am the person in charge of this family, so I can't let him down. So I just wanted to see if the old man left any business experience, and he wanted me to study so that I could better manage the family's business. Quote. Hearing what Locke said, Lao Mo's face was full of relief. Young master, it's really nice of you to think so, but you can go to the study and have a look, maybe you will gain something. Lao Mo said, his hands behind his back, and he left slowly. Looking at Lao Mo who was leaving, Locke always had a strange feeling. The last sentence of this guy is a bit interesting. In the old man's study, Locke sat quietly at the desk, his fingers like light dancers, tapping gently on the table. Pierce, who is the minister of the World Security Council, is actually one of the leaders of the Hydra organization behind the scenes. What is it that makes the Hydra organization look for it? And the plan during World War II, which plan? Quote. Locke muttered to himself, had a headache, and sat in the study for some time, but he didn't find any useful clues. Boom. There was a knock on the door. Please come in. Master, I made you a cup of coffee. I'm thinking about things. Drinking some coffee will be better. It's not Lao Mo, who else could it be? Well, thank you Butler Mo, but I'm underage, can I drink it? Locke took a sip of coffee and asked. Seeing this, Lao Mo's face showed a hint of helplessness. If you were really worried about not being able to drink, you wouldn't drink first and then ask. This is not taking off your pants and farting, is it unnecessary? This young master is getting more and more naughty. Master, didn't you say that you were underage, but are you already an adult? Drinking a little less will not get in the way, and other things are the same, as long as you control the frequency and pay attention to moderation, there is no problem. By the way, when I passed by your room just now, I saw a wax figure of a girl in your room. Did you make it in the laboratory during this time? It was so well done, it looked like it was real, I was taken aback. Quote. Wax. Locke was shocked. Obviously, Lao Mo found Miss 2B in his room. However, the guy in the Nightblade is also smart. He even pretended to be a wax figure. This is a smart way. All she had to do was take her body temperature away and stay still, and it did look like a wax figure. It's just that the thought of this word made him a little uncomfortable. The guy who pushes himself hard every night, if it is really a wax figure, always feels a little nervous. Hee, it's a wax figure I made, but it's not an ordinary wax figure. She has a voice function and can have a simple conversation with me. Locke smiled. Yes, Master, you are really amazing, this is already considered knowledge in the field of intelligent AI. It's not that exaggerated, you can do it by downloading a few voice packs online. Locke smiled. Thank you for the coffee. Locke took a sip of coffee and placed it lightly on the table. Taking a look in the study, Lao Mo suddenly sighed. Master, I've watched you grow up all the way. The people who used to sit in this position were all masters, I really miss them. From you, I can see the shadow of the old man, you really look alike. Quote. Yeah, Locke nodded, always feeling that Lao Mo was a little strange today. By the way, I just remembered that I have an old photo here. It was left by the old man at the beginning, and now I will give it to you. As Lao Mo said, he took out a photo from his pocket and placed it gently on the table in front of Locke. After taking the photo, there was a flash of surprise in Locke's eyes, but he hid it well and didn't show the expression he shouldn't have on his face. It's really an old photo, the old man was so young back then, and so were you. By the way, who are the two standing beside you and the master? Quote. Oh, standing beside the old man is the old man's former investment object, Howard Stark, an inventor. Standing beside me is a genius scientist, Abraham Erskine. However, the two of them passed away many years ago, and now the old man has passed away. Hey, now I'm left with the old bones, I don't know, there are still a few days. Lao Mo sighed. What are you talking about? Lao Mo, you are my only relative now, give me a good life, work hard, at least live 100 years. 100 years old, then there are still more than 20 years. It's at least 100 years old. Ha ha ha. As long as the young master doesn't dislike my broken mouth, I will always accompany the young master. Lao Mo smiled, his face full of emotion. At this moment, there were several noisy voices outside. Lao Mo frowned. It must be those old maids who are arguing again. Young master, I'll go out and deal with it. Well, let's go. Locke nodded and moved his gaze to the photo in front of him again. He really didn't expect that his old man knew Howard and Abraham Erskine. And he is also an investor in Howard. So, he is very likely to be a shareholder of Stark Group. As expected of an old man, as expected of a chaebol. Bulls. Locke smiled. Immediately, several problems that he had been unable to figure out all the time were solved. Howard was one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D., and Erskine was the scientist who developed the super soldier serum. Substituting these 2 points into it, it is not difficult to imagine that the plan in Jin Bing's mouth should be the super soldier plan. I really did not expect that the old man was also a participant in the super soldier program. So, what Hydra is looking for is the super soldier serum. No, the super soldier serum is long gone. And the Hydra organization themselves have come up with a killing machine like the Winter Soldier, and they must be looking for more than just ready-made super soldier serum. Not an off-the-shelf super soldier serum, could it be a recipe? Locke thought silently in his heart, and his heart shook. Suddenly, he seemed to think of something, and immediately rummaged in the study. Being able to make the Hydra organization mobilize the masses, and not hesitate to fight against a chaebol family like the Rockefellers, is obviously more important than imagined. If it is just a ready-made super soldier serum, it obviously does not have such a large amount of energy. In this way, all Locke can think of is the real formula of super serum soldiers. But in the original Marvel universe, this thing has long disappeared. It is precisely because of this that the Hydra organization spends a lot of energy to develop a new super soldier serum, thus creating an irrational killing machine like the Winter Soldier. Not just the Winter Soldier, Bruce Banner, General Ross, Green Goblin and more. They are also affected by the super soldier serum, trying to copy a new super soldier serum to create a more powerful super soldier. However, due to different reasons, there was a problem with the formula, which created one monster after another. It's not that Locke didn't think about looking for strengthening potions from these guys before, but the risks of these potions were not what he wanted to take. In order to strengthen yourself, turn yourself into a monster. What a joke. I am a rich man, do the poor rely on mutating to become better, and the rich rely on technology? However, if you can get the genuine super soldier serum, you can consider injecting it. After all, the side effects of this stuff are almost negligible. And it can greatly improve his physical fitness, which is also of great help to him. He is so weak now that an ordinary person can easily kill him with a gun. And this weak body makes him always feel that he has enough energy when communicating with Teacher 2B. If you want to be obedient to your robot wife, a strong physique is essential. It's time to improve this situation. At this moment, he found a yellowed notebook on the old man's bookshelf. Opening the notebook, a thin piece of paper slipped out. What is this? Locke picked it up curiously and opened it gently. There are several formulas written in a disorderly manner, and it looks like a ghost drawing. If Locke was still an ordinary person, he would have thrown it away as trash. But today's Locke has an IQ far beyond ordinary people, and he can see the extraordinariness of these formulas just by looking at them. Looking down, he faintly saw a very vague name at the bottom corner of the paper. Erkins. This is Erkins' manuscript. Immediately, Locke reacted. The almost damaged piece of paper in his hand was actually a manuscript left by Dr. Erkins. And these formulas are very likely to be the formulas of super soldiers. Why is this thing in the old man's place? Locke looked puzzled. He really couldn't understand why Dr. Erkins' manuscript was in the old man's study. Judging from the randomness of this manuscript, it is clear that Erkins wrote it quickly in an emergency. As for whether this is the real super soldier serum formula, it remains to be verified by himself. However, now he finally knows why Dr. Erkins' genuine formula has not been handed down. Just this random manuscript that looks like a ghostly talisman, a normal person would throw it away as garbage. It was also thanks to his brain that had been strengthened by the system, otherwise he would have thrown it into the trash with a high probability. After reading the manuscript carefully, make sure that all the details are clearly written down. Locke took out the lighter and burned it without hesitation. Some things, as long as you remember it in your mind. Keep it, it's a hassle after all. Shield, Fort Johnson Base. All dead. A man with a blindfold tapped the table with his fingers, his face full of doubts. This man is none other than the current director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury. Yes, sir, all dead, no one alive. In front of him, a woman in a black outfit showing the beautiful scenery on her chest nodded and said. This woman is Natasha Romanoff, known as the Black Widow. Any clues to the murderer? Nick Fury asked Natasha Romanoff in front of him with a solemn expression. Natasha Romanoff shook her head, saying no. Sir, Natasha Romanoff and I went to the scene to see that there were 63 dead, including Jin Bing who died on the rooftop. I analyzed all decedent wounds, just 2. One was wounded by a sharp weapon, and a preliminary guess was that it was a long sword. And the means are very ruthless, almost killing them with a single sword. The second is a wound caused by a high-heat weapon, and the wound has obvious burn marks. According to the analysis of our professionals, the initial suspicion is laser. Moreover, the murderer was extremely cautious, and all the surveillance videos during that night were inexplicably black. No fingerprints were left at the scene, and the murderer was obviously premeditated. Phil Coulson, the level 8 agent beside the two, said calmly. Long sword plus laser, what combination is this? Can we match such a guy in our database? Nick Fury tapped the table and asked curiously. Database not found. Phil Coulson shook his head. In other words, a brand new guy appeared. Yes. This is interesting. With a laser weapon and a powerful hacking ability, this is a high-tech criminal. Nick Fury's face became more and more solemn. At this time, Natasha Romanoff on the side looked like he was hesitating to speak. Seeing this, Nick Fury frowned. What do you want to say? Sir, in fact, besides the Jinbing building, there is another place where a person died. Where? A police station in Manhattan. Before the incident at the Kimpong building, one person died at that police station. After investigation, it was also Jin Bing's subordinate, but the method of death was a little different, because his neck was crushed. Quote. That is to say, this is a massacre specifically aimed at Jin Bing's forces. Probably. The guy who died at the police station, do you know why he was arrested? We asked the people at the police station. That guy named Jace was the murderer who shot and killed Mr. Rockefeller. The Rockefeller family. Hearing the name of the Rockefeller family, Rao as Nick Fury, can't help but take a breath. This family is a behemoth. He finally understood why Jin Bing, the underworld emperor, had such a tragic end. Not to mention Jin Bing, a small underworld boss, even if they are S.H.I.E.L.D., they are still small shrimps in front of this behemoth. He really couldn't figure out how, with Jin Bing's cautious mind, how could he touch the Rockefeller family? What was the difference between this and courting death? Should we take a trip to Rockefeller Manor? Natasha Romanoff asked tentatively. She also knew very well what kind of status this family had in the beautiful country. It is also because of this that she just thought about whether or not to speak out about the police station. Not for the time being. Don't act rashly until there is not enough evidence to prove that the Rockefeller family did this. Even if there is sufficient evidence, you have to report to me first, and then I report to the top. This is a behemoth, don't touch it unless it's a last resort, it's taboo. Quote. Nick Fury sighed, his face complicated. Any Chable family has a special and unshakable status in their country. As the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., he felt it even more deeply. Soon, the presidential election will begin, and the most promising candidate for Locke's success is the Rockefeller family. In other words, if he moves the Rockefeller family now, he will be against the future president, or even the Congress. No matter how fat his guts were, he was not fat enough to damage his brain. Got it. Natasha Romanoff nodded. By the way, what happened to the Rockefeller family recently? Nick Fury took out a cigarette from the cigarette case by the table and lit it, curiously. A special thing. Is it a special thing for the prince to drop out of school? Natasha Romanoff shrugged and laughed. Drop out. Nick Fury looked suspicious as he stopped the cigarette he was about to put in his mouth. I heard that a month ago, the 14-year-old prince of the Rockefeller family, Rockefeller, dropped out of school. Any reason? I heard that the reason for dropping out of school was because of the death of the old man, which caused serious psychological trauma to Locke. He needed to recuperate at home, and his studies were taught by private teachers. However, according to my investigation, the Rockefeller family has not hired teachers for more than a month. On the contrary, on the second day of dropping out, they bought all kinds of experimental equipment and materials. By the way, here is a list of the materials and lab equipment they purchased. Quote. Phil Coulson said as he handed over the prepared materials to Nick Fury. Take it, open it. It is densely recorded with countless experimental equipment and materials. Everything from biological lab materials to physics lab materials. Finally, his eyes stopped on the final purchase price. More than 50 million United States dollars. Nick Fury gasped, the price was really dazzling. Yes, why do you spend so much money to set up a laboratory? I don't know about this. Anyway, these things were finally transported into the manor where Locke lived. From what the porter said at the time, it seemed that the prince was very interested and wanted to do a small scientific experiment. So their housekeeper built a laboratory for him. Phil Coulson recalled. Quote. What science experiment would a 14-year-old kid do? Just kidding. This kind of rich kid is really stupid. Just because of a whim, he spent 50 million United States dollars to build a laboratory. Isn't it good to use this money for other things? Natasha Romanoff shook his head and said with a look of disdain. Natasha Romanoff, you're a little underestimated. Now a young, 14-year-old can do a lot of things. There are many such children in those unhealthy places. Phil Coulson said with a smile. What do you mean? Natasha Romanoff frowned. Don't say it's a small experiment, even a woman, he's already, you know. Phil Coulson shrugged. 14. Cut, little thing. Natasha Romanoff sneered. Okay, don't digress. Do you guys investigate this stuff and does anyone else know about it? Nick Fury asked, changing the subject. Don't worry, we just did a routine investigation, and it was approved by the Rockefeller family. That's good. By the way, Jinan died. This time the underworld will definitely lead to a big reshuffle. You pay more attention. If there is any abnormal situation, report it in time. Okay, let's go first. Yeah, Nick Fury nodded, pressing the cigarette that was about to burn to the bottom of the cigarette in the ashtray. Then, as if thinking of something, he said, by the way, Natasha Romanoff, you stay here, I have something to explain to you. Quote ? Natasha Romanoff. Then I'll go first. Phil Coulson left, closing the door. Sir, what do you want to explain? You secretly visit the former classmates and teachers of Prince Locke these days. Sir, you didn't say. We didn't directly investigate the Rockefeller family, do you think so? Nick Fury said slyly. I see. Natasha Romanoff nodded with a smile and got up to leave. Inside the room, Nick Fury flicked his fingers on the table, lost in thought. Rockefeller Manor, underground laboratory. Locke was typing fast on the keyboard when the last space bar was pressed. A very mechanical electronic synthesis sound sounded in the laboratory. The hologram in front of him also changed. The data entry is completed. The data model is being built. The building is successful, and the pass rate is 100%. Hearing this voice, a happy smile appeared on the faces of Locke and the Nightblade beside him. The best solution for enhanced super soldier serum has really become. Optimal solution enhanced super soldier serum, as the name suggests, is the top configuration of super soldier serum. It has the characteristics of almost no side effects with the genuine super soldier serum, but it can greatly improve the physical function of the injector. Definitely, the so-called near no side effects here are only relative to those serums that turn the injector into a monster. For example, the Winter Soldier created by the Hydra organization, and the Green Goblin with split personality. The biggest side effect of the genuine super soldier serum is to amplify the personality traits of the injector. It's understandable that evil injections become more evil, such as Red Skull. The righteous will become even more brilliant after the injection, such as Captain America Rogers. And Locke has always felt that his characteristics are just like you in front of the screen, a little lewd. Therefore, even if this trait is magnified, he will just become a super pervert. It shouldn't pose too much threat to this society. At most there is one more flower thief in this world. But with his family, with his banknotes ability, why pick flowers? He threw the banknotes on the bed, fearing that there would be countless flowers waiting to be picked by him. The so-called side effects of genuine super soldier serum really have no effect on his wool. I quickly typed a few lines of code on the computer, and the medicine synthesis machine around me started running quickly. It didn't take long for a bottle of green medicine to automatically synthesize. This is exactly what Locke has optimized for the enhanced super soldier serum. Come on, get on the experimental bench and start the human experiment. Locke took off his shirt and walked onto the experimental bench. Quote ! Quote. Master, what are you joking? This thing has not even been tested on animals in the level 1 section, so you just test it on humans, and the test subject is still you. If you don't take care of your own body, you have to think about me as your tutor and wife. If something happens to you, what will I do? Quote. Seeing that Locke walked directly to the experimental bench, Yi Ren hurriedly pulled him and said, what else can I do? I'm definitely a widow. Why, you still want to remarry? Locke said mockingly. Keep your sister's widow. Happy things can't stop for a day, and I want this young lady to be a widow. There is no door. Article 3 of the Robot Guidelines. Always take the safety of the creator's life as its own responsibility, and never put the creator in danger. If the creator is in danger due to force majeure, it will do whatever it takes to save the creator. Young master, please think twice, don't use your body to make jokes, find a few white mice, and start with animal experiments. Yi Blade said with a serious look on his face. It felt like if he said no, the Nightblade would just tie him up. Locke didn't doubt that she would, since the robot code was his own. Once he is really in danger, the Nightblade will really do anything. It is good to tie himself up, and it may directly smash the super soldier serum in his hand. The super soldier serum he finally came up with can't be destroyed like this. I have to say that the robot wife loves herself too much, and she is also worried. Locke thought helplessly. If a man knew what he was thinking at this moment, he would probably be hammered to death. Get cheap and sell well. Okay, I'll listen to you, teacher 2B, do animal experiments first, so that's the head office. Locke shook his head, dumbfounded. Why do you sound like you're cursing? Why, don't you just call it 2B? You are only 2B, this 2B is not that 2B, anyway, it's not the 2B you understand. Yes, it's not 2B that I understand, it's 2B that you understand yourself. Is this the head office? Don't 2B come 2B, hurry up to carry out animal experiments, young master, I'm still in a hurry to get bigger and stronger. Don't you want to see how deep the stronger young master can reach earlier? Locke squeezed his fist and said domineeringly. Think. Nightblade nodded. What nonsense is that, hurry up. A week later, after a series of rigorous tests, Locke was finally able to walk onto the test bench unhindered. The human experiment that belongs to him has officially started. According to the test data of the past few days, after the injection, the body will produce a short-term rejection reaction, and there will be unimaginable pain. Young master, you can bear it. Nightblade, wearing a white coat, said very seriously. Before, she was only a cosplay nurse, but this time, he really wanted to be a nurse once. After all, she held a needle and stabbed a needle directly into the arm of Locke, who was tied up with 5 flowers. Locke, who was originally calm, immediately turned hideous. The experimental warehouse is closed. The subject's vital signs fluctuated, and the body temperature began to rise. Turn on the cooling mode, the body temperature begins to drop, the secretion of the adrenal glands rises abnormally, and the body functions are strengthening. Progress 1%, 10%. A series of electronic alarms sounded in the laboratory, nervous and exciting. Yi Blade, who has been staring at the computer screen, has a solemn face and frowns, very worried. 98%. 0.99%. 0.100%. Ding, the progress is 100%, the strengthening is successful. When the last electronic alarm ended, the entire laboratory fell into silence, and Yi Blade could hear his own heartbeat. Her eyes were fixed on the experimental warehouse. At this moment, the warehouse body opened with a bang. The figure was taller, and the new Locke, whose body was covered with beautiful streamlined muscles, appeared in front of her. Locke, who had slightly closed his eyes, slowly opened his eyes, and his originally grim face slowly stretched out and turned into enjoyment. Raise your hands and hold them tightly, crackling. A powerful force filled his fists, which made him have the illusion that one punch could break the sky. This is a normal reaction to a sudden surge of power in a short period of time. Think of ordinary super soldier potions, which can turn Rogers, a weak dwarf, into a 1.8-meter soldier. And it's the kind that can pull a plane by hand. At this moment, it is not difficult to imagine how the strength of Locke, who was injected with the optimal solution enhanced super soldier serum, has been improved. Is this the power beyond human beings? So cool. Locke couldn't hide his excitement and looked at his body. From the palms to the arms, to the pecs, to the abs, and then under the abs. Wait, what the hell? Where are my pants? Locke was shocked, because he suddenly found that the pants he was wearing were bursting out by his beautiful muscles. This is not to say that his current physique is so sturdy and terrifying, on the contrary, his body is still incomparably well proportioned. The file size of each muscle is just right, it is the kind of streamlined living muscle. It's the kind of muscle line that you can easily control, the kind that is firm if you want to be strong, and soft if you want to be soft. The main reason why his pants were bursting at the moment was because he was too weak before. After all, he was only passing through the body of a 14-year-old underage, No matter how strong this young man's physique was, how strong could he be? And now with the injection of the enhanced super soldier serum, it is equivalent to speeding up his development. No, it's not just about speeding up his growth, more precisely, it's maximizing his growth. Let him complete the development of the next few years in a few minutes, and it is still a monster-level strengthening. In this way, his previous clothes and trousers naturally couldn't bear it, and it was absolutely certain that he was bursting. Oops! At this moment, Locke was startled, as if thinking of something. He turned around quickly, but it was too late. A soft, warm palm stopped him one step ahead of him. Hiss! Locke took a deep breath. His eyes moved to a night blade that rushed to the front of him. What are you doing? Locke looked at her speechlessly. Are you really that underage young master? It's completely different. You've grown a lot taller. Nightblade said incredulously while touching Locke's completely different, but almost beautiful body. I'm definitely still me, but I just grew up earlier. Locke said with a smile, tore off the bandage that bound him, and walked out of the experimental chamber with one foot. Pinch Yi-Ren's chin, forcing her to step back step by step, looking down at her, the beautiful scenery on her chest comes into view. Suddenly, with the sound of a king, Yi-Blade's startled roar, winking and blurring. Is this the young master who became stronger, so strong? The night blade deer rammed around, full of thoughts. What are you doing? Bring me a new set of clothes. Oh, I almost forgot. Nightblade turned around and ran out. It didn't take long before she took a new set of clothes and came to Locke. However, she did not immediately hand over the clothes to Locke. And as if suddenly remembered, he looked at Locke with a playful face. Master, I almost forgot, the experimental process has not been completed, there is still the last step. The last step? What? Locke was curious that his strengthening had obviously ended. What is the so-called last step of this robot wife in front of you? Strength test, see how much stronger you are than before. Yi-Ren said solemnly. It turns out that the last step you said refers to this. Locke was dumbfounded. What? Want to compare with me? BB, come on then, you choose the battle mode. Let's start with hand-to-hand combat with bare hands. With bare hands, that's exactly what I mean. Very well, then I can start. Yi-Blade said, and tore off his black battle suit. Quote. Your sister, with bare hands, what are you taking off? Young master, you need to listen to everything. It's hand-to-hand combat with bare hands. The focus is on hand-to-hand combat, not bare hands. Quote. I'm sorry. A long time. Locke was panting, and Nightblade had fallen to the ground. Obviously, the victory of the battle belongs to Locke, whose body has been terribly strengthened. How? Are you convinced now? From his pocket, Locke took out a piece of chewing gum and threw it into his mouth, chewing, and smiled at the Nightblade lying on the ground, said. The Nightblade staggered up from the ground, and the defeat of the battle did not make her sad. Instead, a very satisfied and excited smile appeared on her face. Young master, you are so strong. I am very happy, I like it very much. Yi-Blade seemed to be drunk, his beautiful face was blushing, and his eyes were full of admiration when he looked at Locke. Obviously, she is really convinced. Although the battle with the Nightblade just now was not a real fighting battle. But Locke has a relatively comprehensive understanding of his current body. If I had to describe it, it would be as powerful as a beast, as fast as lightning, as strong as a rock, and enduring for a long time. Simply, dull fight. Bah, it's a humanoid monster. Just imagine how strong it is to be able to win against the robot wife who has let go of her full strength and win. He has a strong intuition that his current self, even in the face of a monster of the level of a regular Hulk, will definitely not be inferior. After all, what he injected was the optimal enhanced super soldier serum. Its effect is several times stronger than the original super soldier serum. Sentry with the explosive force of 1,000,000 fixed stars is a good example. However, Locke is definitely not comparable to Sentry now, and he is currently limited to the upper reaches of the surface-level combat power. Definitely, the above-mentioned things require him to have a strong foundation of fighting ability. And now, he obviously hasn't. Sora has a strong body and almost zero fighting skills. You can also clean up the robot wife at home. It seems that I have to find some fighting teachers. Locke muttered to himself. Why, I'm not enough to be your teacher. Nightblade twisted the water snake's waist, walked to Locke, and hung on Locke's body like a koala. With a slight smile, he squeezed Nightblade's soft chin. Definitely yes, in the future you will not only be my tutor, but also my fighting teacher. However, I have a lot of fighting skills to learn, not just you. Locke said thoughtfully. He said that because super serum not only strengthened his physique, but also his brain. He already had an extraordinary IQ, but now he has an unforgettable memory and photographic responsibility. When it comes to the ability to respond to photography, the first thing that comes to mind is the classic villain imitation master of the Marvel world, Tony Masters. He is a former S.H.I.E.L.D. agent, who has the photo reaction ability due to the accidental injection of special serum. Locke has the ability to copy other people's fighting moves. The body movements of the target can be perfectly and precisely replicated, and no matter how complex the target's body movements are, it can be accurately restored. He can even learn movement skills by watching TV, videotape, DVD, movies, etc. Therefore, he is proficient in a variety of fighting skills including but not limited to karate, modern fighting, Western swordsmanship, Dragon Country traditional martial arts, etc., and is a veritable martial arts master. Through the photographic reaction ability, the master imitator skillfully copied the unarmed combat and various cold and hot weapon combat skills of countless combat masters. Combining them in a targeted manner creates a fighting style of its own. From this, it can be seen that the photographic reaction ability has a perverted bonus effect for the learners of physical arts. But although they are all photographic reaction abilities, there are also strong and weak points. The photographic response ability of mimicking the master is flawed. Although the imitation master has a strong memory and can quickly learn the ability of others. But his brain capacity has not been strengthened, so every time the new ability accumulates to a stage, the old memory will be removed from his brain, so that he never remembers his wife. This is just like our mobile phones and computers. It is not enough to have a powerful CPU. The space capacity should also be increased accordingly, otherwise every time a new film is downloaded, the old film must be deleted, which is a pity. And Locke does not have such a problem. Not only is his photographic response more perverted than that of the master imitator. His brain capacity has also been double strengthened by the system and the super soldier serum, so the capacity is very sufficient. If the CPU of the imitation master is i3 and the brain capacity is 256G, then his CPU is i7 and the brain capacity is 2T. The two cannot be compared at all, and at this point, he couldn't help but look forward to it. When you watch all the fighting movies, how will your fighting skills improve? Wouldn't it be better to watch some more romantic movies? Thinking of this, Locke looked at the Nightblade with a wretched smile on his face. Looking forward to it. Okay, put on your clothes. Gently put down the Nightblade hanging around his neck. Locke, who was dressed, threw the black silk of the Nightblade in front of her. After taking the black silk, Yi-Ren smiled and threw it into the trash can next to it. It's all torn like this, how can I wear it? I have a new one. Having said that, he got up, twisted the waist of the water snake, and walked into the room along the stairs. Locke's underground laboratory, right under the ground of his villa, leads directly to his bedroom. The reason for this design is also for convenience, but now it seems that this is also convenient for Yeren, the robot wife. There is one more place on the battlefield for herself and her. Walking out of the underground laboratory, the knock on the door sounded at the right time. Master, are you up yet? Lao Mo's voice. During this period of time, because of the super soldier serum, he forgot to eat and sleep. He didn't sleep last night, how did he get up? But of course he couldn't tell Lao Mo. Wake up, what's the matter? Locke tidied up his clothes. But what embarrassed him was that the clothes were too small and the heels were exposed. This is also impossible. The super soldier serum made him grow more than 10 centimeters in a few minutes, and his body also became stronger. He was already tall, but he looked even taller, and it was a trivial matter that his clothes were too small. When Lao Mo sees him like this, I'm afraid it won't be easy to explain. But just think about it, it's not easy to explain, so don't explain it, don't worry about it. Anyway, he was thinking of a showdown with Lao Mo. Yes, there is something I want to report to the young master. Come in. Lao Mo pushed open the door, walked in, and first saw Locke sitting on the sofa. Immediately, a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. But soon, the surprise disappeared, replaced by a meaningful smile. Looks like, young master, you have something to tell me too. Lao Mo smiled and came to Locke unhurriedly. Some hunched bodies sat directly opposite Locke. Looking at Lao Mo's reaction, Locke smiled and sat upright. His guess was right, and the old butler in front of him was not as simple as he seemed on the surface. Do you speak first or I speak first? Locke said directly, not to blame. It's better for the young master to speak first. Presumably the young master wants to ask more things than me. Lao Mo said with a smile. Really? First question, who are you? Who is it? I've always been the housekeeper of the Rockefeller family. It was in the past, it is now, and it will be in the future. It depends on your wishes, master. Lao Mo smiled. I'm not asking about your occupation, but your identity, or more precisely, your hidden identity. Locke crossed his fingers and placed it lightly on his chin, staring at Lao Mo with deep eyes, as if to see through him. However, Lao Mo had a kind smile on his face and a sincere look on his face. My clear identity is the big housekeeper of the Rockefeller family, responsible for the family's internal affairs, including but not limited to health management, subordinate management, manor security and a series of work. But secretly, I do have an identity, the chief bodyguard beside the old man, responsible for the personal safety of the old man. However, I am remiss. Quote, speaking of this, Lao Mo's face showed a touch of sadness, and his heart was aching. That day, he instinctively protected the young master Locke first, but the old man was shot and died unfortunately. During this time, he was tortured a lot, and he was surrounded by negative emotions such as annoyance and guilt, which made him physically and mentally exhausted. But it has never been revealed in front of the young master Locke. It's not your fault, you have done a good job, otherwise I would have died. Locke said gratefully from the bottom of his heart. I can do better. Lao Mo shook his head with a sad expression. Okay, think about what you said to me before, what we have to do now is how to live better. Second question, your body seems to be different from ordinary people. Locke continued to ask. Looks like you've already discovered it, master. It's also normal for a genius master who can create a super soldier serum by using the formula left by Dr. Erkins to discover the old servant's secret. I won't hide it, yes, Dr. Erkins made a total of 3 super soldier serums. The first experimental super soldier serum was injected by John Schmidt. As for who John Schmidt is, I will explain it to you later. Quote, hearing Lao Mo's words, Locke showed a meaningful smile. As a traveler, others may not know who John Schmidt is. But he is very clear. This guy has a popular nickname, Red Skull. It's just that he didn't expect that Lao Mo actually knew Red Skull. And it seems that there are some unknown grievances between the two. The second improved version of the super soldier serum, the injector, is me. At that time, I was a small follower under the old man, and I was responsible for helping him. That night, the fires of World War II burned into the hotel we were staying, and I was unfortunately shot and my life was in danger. In order to save me, the old man carried me under fire all the way and took me to Dr. Erkins. Then I was injected with the still improving super soldier serum, and I saved my life. My second life was given by the old man and Dr. Erkins, which I will always remember. Since then, I have been by the old man's side, and since childhood, I have become the big housekeeper of the Rockefeller family. At the same time, he is also the bodyguard of the old man. It's been so many years since this flash, all the people from that year have left, and I'm the only one left, Old Mo sighed, feeling very much. In this world, people are the most embarrassing. It turns out that, but I didn't expect that there is such a bizarre and twisted story in it. Locke was enlightened, and finally understood why the old Mo in front of him had such a strong physique. It turns out that this guy, like Captain America Rogers, is also a Superman type injected with super soldier serum. I just don't know who was stronger than Captain America in his combat effectiveness back then. Haha, this is an old adult affair half a century ago. If the young master didn't ask about it, it wouldn't be worth mentioning. Lao Mo shook his head and smiled bitterly. By the way, what about the third super soldier potion? Locke asked knowingly. The infuser of the third super soldier serum is Captain America Rogers, the one from the comics. At that time, he was the spiritual food of the soldiers in the army, but unfortunately, he died. Lao Mo shook his head, as if caught in a memory. So that's the case. So, you have the same outstanding strength as Captain America. Which of you is stronger? Locke asked curiously. Ha ha ha, I guessed you would ask this, young master. But I did compete with Rogers back then. Quote, result. Tie. Quote exclamation mark quote. So, Lao Mo, you are really a master. Hee hee, no matter how high it is, it can't withstand the ravages of time, I am an old bone. Don't talk about this, young master, should I ask you? Old Mo turned around and looked at Locke and said. You ask. Locke nodded, sat up straight, and looked at Lao Mo. Are you still my young master? Lao Mo looked at Locke meaningfully and asked. Hearing this, Locke smiled and was silent for a moment. Definitely, I will always be the heir to the Rockefeller family, and always your young master. Hearing Locke's firm words, a relieved smile appeared on Lao Mo's face. I understand. Nodding, getting up. Master, you've been making too much noise recently, someone wants to investigate you. But they were blocked by me, but they did not give up in secret. But don't worry, I'll take care of it, said Mo Yi pointedly. Sure enough, Lao Mo had long known that Jinbing was the one who did it. But it doesn't matter anymore, the showdown has already been done, it's good to know. If you can deal with it, deal with it. If you can't deal with it, I will let someone deal with it. Understood. Lao Mo nodded and left respectfully. But when he reached the door, he stopped again and turned to look at Locke. Master, the robot you built is beautiful. However, it's better to be restrained. After all, you are still underage. Quote. Old man, I advise you to mind your own business. This guy, Lao Mo, really knows everything, but he doesn't say anything. Jumping out at this time and putting yourself in moderation. What a joke, just having fun, but it has always been his life creed. Moreover, Miss 2B is really fragrant. He is still young, so what does he think so much about? Sighing, Lao Mo hunched his body and shook his head. You are so similar to the old man, as expected, if you have a father, you must have a son. Old man, if you don't come here, I don't believe that you can sit still when you are young, and I pretend to be innocent with the young master. Don't think that I don't know about you and those old pickle maids, I'm embarrassed to point you out. I used to think that it was the old man's good old friend, so I was specially taken care of. But guess what I've found recently, the guy who knocks on the maid's door in the middle of the night, is that you. The reason why the maids quarrel every day is because you are not ashamed. Quote. Master, you. Lao Mo never thought that his young master even knew these little secrets of him. Immediately, he was embarrassed. If there was a crack on the ground, he would want to get in. Master, it's not what you think, we are just ordinary friends. Still pretend to me, go. The old slave will retire first. By the way, the old slave originally planned to recruit some younger maids for the young master. But now that the young master has a robot servant, I will put the recruitment of maids on hold for the time being. Lao Mo thought about it and said. Quote exclamation mark quote. Wait, I think this can happen. Locke said with a smile. King. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a sound of drawing a knife in the bedroom behind him. Immediately, his back felt a chill. It's over, the voice was too loud, and was heard by Miss 2B. You're right, shelving, it must be shelved. Hee hee, I see, the old slave has retired. Lao Mo glanced meaningfully at the direction of the bedroom, then bowed and walked away. It's not bad to have a robot in charge of the young master, he can also save a lot of worry. The old man thought so. Locke, on the other hand, thought differently. It's not good to create something by yourself, you have to create an emotional system for Miss 2B. It's all right now, I'm suffering myself. In the room, Locke sat naked on the sofa, closing his eyes and resting. In the bathroom, the sound of running water was like a beautiful musical instrument playing. Through the ground glass, Locke could see the beautiful silhouette of the Nightblade swaying. Shaking his head with a wry smile, just now, he paid the price he deserved for his wrong words. Feeling the body being hollowed out at the moment. Taking advantage of Yi Ren's spare time while taking a bath, he closed his eyes and entered the system. Host. Lock. Technology world. Neil mechanical age. Points. 10. The 10 points were earned by the last time Locke saw Tony Stark admit he was Iron Man on TV. According to the rules of the system, you can get rewards for witnessing and participating in Marvel events. Although I saw the news of Tony Stark on TV, it was a witness. However, there is still a big gap in the reward points of Locke for witnessing major events and participating in major events. If you really want to earn points, the fastest way is to directly participate in various Marvel events. Looking at the poor points, Locke withdrew directly from the system. Only by accumulating 100 points can we proceed to the next round of the lottery, and now there are only 10 points, so nothing can be done. It seems that it's time to take the initiative to find something to do. Locke muttered to himself. Just then, a text message alert sounded on his cell phone. Take your phone, click it. See you at the old place tonight. Sender. Gwen. Looking at the sender's name, a gentle smile appeared on Locke's face. That's right, the person who texted him was none other than Gwen Stacy, one of Spider-Man's ex-girlfriends in the Marvel world. But in the timeline he is in now, Gwen is his senior sister and the object of his puppy love. Currently 16 years old and still in high school. As for Spider-Man Pete Parker, no one was seen. Probably still playing mud at Midtown High School in Queens. Or, still in love with Flash Thompson's girlfriend Mary Jane Watson. Anyway, according to Locke's guess, at this time Pete Parker should still be a DOC. See you at the old place, alright. Locke replied to a text message with a smile, and a warm scene with Gwen appeared in his mind unconsciously. The relationship between the two of them is pure love, at least for now. New York, an expensive private high school, a youthful and beautiful girl, her face is flushed, like a fire. Stinky boy, what's the matter with hair? Don't be ashamed. Even so, she was as happy as eating honey. Turning off the phone, a gentle smile appeared on Locke's face. Gwen Stacy is a love wealth left to him by his predecessor. This is a surprise, because he has always had a good impression of Gwen himself. Gwen is a typical Western beauty, blonde, blue-eyed, tall, sweet-looking, and is now at the age of youth and beauty. It goes well with the underage him. Definitely, the so-called match refers to the pure love aspect. As a transmigrator, Locke has not yet perverted to the point where he wants to reach out to underage girls. Although he is considered a minor now, it feels a bit funny to say this. But, this is his real idea. What he can do and what he can't do, he has his own bottom line. Between him and Gwen, it is enough to maintain a sweet love. The time he has is that one day Gwen will grow up. Before Gwen grew up, Miss 2B was his best companion. The sound of water in the bathroom stopped. Nightblade, wrapped in a white towel as usual, came to Locke. Like a cat, snuggling in Locke's arms. Locke smiled, and slipped his fingers between the silver white hair, giving her a gentle massage. It looks like he's playing a cat. Young master, the task you explained to me has been completed. Yi Ren said softly. So fast, it seems to be less than 10 minutes, right? I asked you to do it before taking a shower. Locke was shocked. The matter of the old man is his hatred, and it is impossible for him to give up until he sends the ultimate murderer to the West. It's just that in the past few days, he has been busy with the super soldier serum, which has delayed the progress of the matter for a while. After you have successfully strengthened your body, this matter will naturally be put on the agenda again. So Locke lets Nightblade use his hacking skills to hack into SHIELD's repository to find everything about Hydra and Pierce, the old thief. This thing seems to be easy to say, but its difficulty is like climbing to the sky. You must know that the technological power of beautiful country has always been a global leader. Not to mention, the technological power of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is the top level in this world. Wanting to hack into SHIELD's information base is simply impossible for ordinary people. But at this moment, Miss 2B quietly broke it in less than 10 minutes. And also filter out the information you want from the massive data. So, how could he not be shocked? It's just a trivial matter, it only took a minute to hack into SHIELD's information database. Most of the time is spent on massive queries, otherwise it can be faster. Nightblade said proudly. Ms. 2B, who has a self-learning function, is only making up for hacking techniques during this time. Up to now, even Locke's own skills are no match for her. However, Locke doesn't care about this. He specializes in surgery, and it is meaningless to compare hacking skills with a robot. Miss 2B is made by him, as long as you know this is enough. For him, the stronger Miss 2B is, the better it will be for him, and he can't ask for it. As expected of my good wife, she did a great job. Locke stroked Miss 2B's hair and praised her softly. Is there a reward for that? Miss 2B raised her head and looked at Locke with her bewildered eyes. Seeing this, Locke immediately smiled bitterly, shook his head and said, 10 minutes ago, the battle just ended, do you want me to die young? Giggle, look, I scared you, I'm joking with you. The third rule of robotics is that the creator must not be put into danger, I know this very well. Quote, it's good to be clear. If happy things happen every day, they will become sparse and ordinary, and thus lose the essence of happiness. So keep it in moderation. My robot wife. Quote, Locke was dumbfounded, he never thought that such words would come out of his mouth. I never thought that my robot wife would become a life-threatening existence. This is simply off the mark. Sure enough, the drought died from the drought, the flood died from the flood, and now Locke is in the flood disaster period. List of young masters. Life is too short to have fun. Miss 2B said with a smile. Quote. Locke, don't be poor with me, since the information has been collected, let's start the action. The target of this mission, Pierce. The result I want is very simple, that is, let him die. If anyone blocks, then kill without mercy. Locke said coldly. Received. Nightblade nodded with excitement on his face. The fighting consciousness engraved in her emotional center makes her have a strong desire to fight. That's why she always wanted to fight Locke. Because hand-to-hand combat, in her understanding, is also a kind of combat. Get up from Locke's arms and quickly put on the black battle suit. A two-handed épée and a one-handed long sword automatically floated behind her. Anti-gravity drones followed closely. At this moment, the Nightblade once again incarnates into a ruthless life-seeking witch. Sassy and beautiful. Master, are you participating this time? It can be controlled by hand. Nightblade smiled and looked at Locke and said. Locke was a little moved, but thinking of Gwen's text message, he shook his head. This time, it's up to you to handle it completely. I have to watch more martial arts movies at home. Is it a love martial arts movie? Quote. Giggle, young master, you are so funny. After all, the Nightblade directly put on his own unique blindfold. A pair of black demonic mechanical wings unfolded from her back, taking her into the sky. This is the anti-gravity flight device that Locke made for her. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.